Bob Bowden. I'm a former Television Academy governor and television producer, and I am a co-founder of the National Archives of Game Show History with the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York.
I'm Adam Nedeff. I'm an archivist and researcher for the Strong Museum of Play, and I'm also an author. I've written 10 books about the history of game shows.
And I'm Chris Bench from the Strong Museum, and thrilled to be working with these guys to preserve this important part of American cultural history.
What turned the light on for me and inspired me to get into game shows, which I've been in for over 40 years now, was a taping of Password that I went to when I was 6 years old. And I remember sitting in the balcony and seeing this show in living color and thinking, this is what I want to do when I grow up. And I have lived that dream, and I'm still living that dream. I'm still producing a game show that's on every day called Funny You Should Ask. And it was all because of that day that I went to that taping of Password that turned the light on for me. And my nickname and my license plate and the inspiration in my life is TV Bob. That's what I'm known as. So, can't be more dedicated to TV than I am. Yes, indeed.
My earliest memory of watching television would be Bob Barker with black hair on a putting green explaining to somebody how they can win a new car. And my obsession with game shows just went from there. In kindergarten, one of the kindergarten teachers took my mother aside and said, you know, you may want to limit him to one game show a day, because during drawing time, the other kids were drawing dinosaurs, they were drawing monsters, they were drawing their pets or their parents, and I was drawing the set of Jeopardy, or I was drawing the stage for Wheel of Fortune. I just knew at the very beginning of my life that game shows were my thing, and that's what I wanted to do for my entire life. So I knew what I wanted to do when I was 4, and now that I'm 40, I'm doing exactly what I promised my 4-year-old self I'd be doing.
I'm a little older than Adam, so I remember the Captain Kangaroo show. That was what I watched growing up. And in some ways, I'm sort of in the same territory. I feel like what the Captain offered was edutainment. If you can't entertain somebody, you can't educate them. So I'm trying to tell history in all sorts of ways that are engaging for viewers, listeners, all that kind of thing.
Other than my family, television is my greatest passion. I live it and breathe it, and I'm excited about it every single day. I can't wait to get to work and make game shows. I can't wait to get home and watch game shows. And I've been lucky enough to be a part of the Television Academy. I've been on the Board of Governors for 13 years. And I love this organization. I love the foundation. And as a co-founder of the National Archives of Game Show History, we have partnered with the Television Academy Interviews, and we've already done 2 interviews as a co-production with them, and we're planning to do a lot more. This is a great organization, it's a great industry, and I'm lucky every day of my life to be a part of it.
Television taught me that I belonged and that there was a space for me, and that's a very strange thing to say when you're a heterosexual white male. So just to explain, when I say somebody who is me and somebody who's looking for a place to belong, I'm talking about being a kid who wasn't into sports and a kid who would rather do crossword puzzles, a kid who liked assembling odd bits of trivia and say, hey mom, did you know? And finding out there's a reward for that, and there's a place where it can be fun to be that kind of person, and there's a place where you're congratulated and put on a pedestal for being a person like that. And game shows make it fun to be kind of a nerd, and game shows make it okay to be kind of a nerd, and game shows make it great and exciting and wonderful. And so this has been a chance for me to get to know the people who put those things together and who put together the things that entertained me and gave me an outlet when I was a kid.
I love my job. I love collecting objects for the museum, but one of the most fun things I get to do is I'm often the on-air spokesperson for the museum. And when a camera turns on or a radio mic points my way, I feel a sense of focus that I am telling this story in the best way possible, and I'm really meeting people right where they're paying attention, and that's just a thrill to be part of that.
Television has provided a lot of role models for me. I have trained at the feet of some of the top producers in television. I have learned from some of the top executives in television how to make a show, how to develop a show, how to pitch a show, how to create a show, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's been an amazing career for me to work with so many of the idols that I grew up with, and meeting them was exciting enough, but then working with them and collaborating with them, people like Dick Clark, who I grew up idolizing, and I wound up creating a television show with Dick Clark at his invitation. And he shared a card at the end of the show, a credit with me, the first time he ever did that with anybody else. He was a mentor and a friend and a supporter, and he took me under his wing and into his trust circle in a way that I never could have imagined as a kid. So whenever I think about going to the Emmys and being a part of this industry, I pinch myself, because when I was growing up, if I could even be a part of this industry in any way, it would excite me, and I live that dream.
In front of the camera and behind the camera. In front of the camera, I grew up idolizing people like Mr. Rogers, and from the game show world, Bill Cullen, people who went out there in front of the camera as the best versions of themselves and just put a friendly face and taught you to be nice to people, to be kind to people, to be friendly to people, to embrace new things and to try a new situation. Bill Cullen was always very gracious and very welcoming to his contestants who were on television for the only time in their lives, and he kind of took them by the arm, metaphorically speaking, and let them know that they were going to be okay and they were going to get through this all right. And Mr. Rogers, with his songs, kind of taught me how to get through childhood and how to get through those kinds of quandaries that come up in a kid's life. Behind the camera, I'm standing next to a guy, if it doesn't sound too much like a suck-up statement, but working with Bob has taught me a lot about patience and about compromise and about how to get the job that you need done while also trying to help somebody else push their boulder up the same hill. I've learned a lot from working for him, and it's been a real education working with him for television shows and with the museum now.
Well, and I'm honored to work with people who are behind the camera talent like Bob and Adam, who have insights into how the process works. I'm so impressed. They are such wonderful people to work with, and thrilled to have this opportunity.
My favorite game show of all time is The Price is Right. And the reason I say that is because The Price is Right is so much more than just a game show. It's a variety show. There's over 70 different games. And any day that you tune into that show, it's a completely different spectacle. And it involves you so greatly as a home audience. That's the key to a great game show, is involving you so that you want to be a part of it, and you're yelling answers at the TV. There's very few shows that do that better than The Price is Right. And it's been on for over 50 years.
So what's your favorite?
You know, my answer to that question changes depending on the day of the week and the mood and the weather. But I would say Wheel of Fortune is one of the shows that brought me to the dance, so to speak. It's a show that's a core memory for me, and it's a warm, fuzzy memory for me. It was the show that I watched with my grandparents, and they were always amazed at how their little 4-year-old grandson could solve the puzzles so much quicker than the adults on the show. And now fast forward to age 40, where as a birthday present to myself, I commissioned a Wheel of Fortune to be built that would fit into my living room, and I have people over for game nights now. That's how deep the love of that show runs for me.
That's awesome. Okay.
I grew up watching what was then the $25,000 Pyramid with Dick Clark, and I loved the quick, smart answers that happened on that show. That so impressed me, that people could be so intuitive and concise.